Well, everyone, tonight's the night. It's time for the American 700, the most famous stock car race in the world. 700 miles of non-stop racing action. Well, actually, it might get stopped today because the big news story coming into this race says the weather does not look good for later on. They've actually pushed up the start 20 minutes just to make sure that we can try and get this race in tonight. So, we're not going to get around to all the driver interviews that we did for the last couple of years because, quite simply, we're just going to go racing earlier. Couple of major news items, though, coming in. A lot of good cars. Championship contenders did not make the race. Jake Baskinger and Cooper Cyron just narrowly got edged out. Kyle Schock Jr., there was a bit of a push to try and get Schock to buy out a ride, or maybe swap over with Aaron Perkins. However, ARCSOA quickly shot that one down, and there is no ride buying here. A lot of drivers that we kind of expected are on the grid. Not a whole lot of one-off cars made it this season. A lot of third cars made it, and a lot of full-time cars made it on the grid. Couple of surprising names, such as Adrian White made the field. A couple other guys that we should get around to. But now it is time for the national anthem here today for the American 700. Let's get down to the Teenage Choir of Ohio, the Ohio Teenage Choir, as they will give us our national anthem. Alright, now it is time for the most famous words in racing. Like I said, this is a bit of a sped up intro show because we got to get to the racing here because of incoming bad weather. Race could get pushed back till tomorrow if it doesn't finish. Let's get down to the most famous words in racing. Apparently, they were supposed to get some major celebrity here, but it was found out that they didn't show up and we're not allowed to say who it is. So they got some kid out of the crowd. So this is Jordan Kenworth out of the crowd, a 4-year-old kid getting the chance of a lifetime to say, drivers, start your engines here at the American 700. Let's hear it. And now, as we're kind of cutting away from the sound there, the cars have been fired. Let us get down to the starting grid. We're going to start from back to front like we normally do. And here we go. Starting on the outside of the last row, row number 21, or starting in P42, we have Tamer Delise just barely within the final couple of minutes, or within the final minute, locked himself into the American 700 by just jumping up there and grabbing it. And on his inside, you have Sean Angel, another guy pretty late that jumped in. Angel was a very close one, bumped out Cooper Siren, and Siren couldn't get a draft to get back in. On the next row up, we have Tuomas Sernin. Kind of surprising seeing him so far back. He's normally really strong on these high-speed ovals, as are the Ferraris. And on his inside, we have Ike Durbin. Ike Durbin's another car that we're expecting to move towards the front rather quickly, believe it or not. On the outside of the next row up in P38, we have Tyler Thaber. Tyler Thaber is right now actually improving quite a lot from a pretty dismal start to the season. He made the American 700, and that's pretty good for him. This will probably be, as what we look at it, his last American 700 start. He might do a part-time American 700, but we know this is his last full-time season. And on his inside, we have Niko Polyakov, the Russian driver, on the outside, or on the inside in P37 position. All three McLarens, despite looking rather slow early on this week, have all qualified for the race, and Polyakov just happened to be the worst of the qualifiers, but at least he is in. Shame we can't say that about a couple other drivers. Aaron Perkins, the only pure Michigan to make it out of the grid. Pure Michigan was pretty quick earlier in the week and just couldn't get a run going. It was actually Schock and Washer were working together towards the end of the session and couldn't get either of them in the field. So both Aaron Perkins was the only pure Michigan who was working with her husband, Sean Perkins, to get in. And on her inside, we have Chris Louviere in one of the two SRT cars, another team that has struggled quite a bit this weekend, getting 2 out of their 3 cars in. The only one that didn't was Matt Duncan. So Subaru should be happy with that. On the outside, we have Jerry Guerrero. Long time since we've heard that name in this series. In the Mitsubishi team, they've come for the last couple of seasons here. And on the inside, we have kind of a debutante driver, Adrian White. Adrian White is a, not sure where he came from, but he just showed up with Team SunTrust, who was thinking about going full-time next year in a Dodge, an old Dodge, actually, and somehow got it on the grid, so Adrian White could end up being a one of those kind of shock stories of a qualifier, and watch Adrian White. He could be a threat, possibly for a sleeper result. On the outside of the next row up in position 32, we have Jacob Hart. Jacob Hart, the Season 13 American 700 winner, starting in 32nd position, and not the qualifying position he would have liked, but the American 700 can tend to be a bit of a crapshoot where it really doesn't matter where you start, except with the only exception of the possible big one. And on the inside of him, we have the oldest driver to ever take part in the ARCSOA Elite Series, Tom Allen. Andreas and Alex Allen's grandfather to season 15 American 700 winner, Vincent Allen, the grandfather. He's at the beautifully young age of 74 years old. Good to see Tom Allen on the grid. This is probably going to be his last ever start in a racing series. Former ARC driver, by the way. A couple of former ARC drivers are on the grid today. I believe he's a teammate to Adrian White, actually. So, they're both Dodge Chargers. On the outside, in P30, we have I can't pronounce his name, Martinage. I'm sorry about that. I just got correction by my producer there. John Martinage, he is going to be in the one of the Oricom Army cars. Oricom only, I believe, got 2 cars into the grid as I'm looking up the order. I do not see another Oricom, so Oricom brought 5 cars and only 2 of them made it, so tough break for Oricom Army, but at least they've got 2 cars in the grid. And on the inside, we have Tristan Wilhoit. Wilhoit was not looking strong in qualifying until very late on. With about 5 minutes to go, he finally knocked himself up to 15th position, but then kind of the craziness towards the end of the session, he got bumped down to 29th, so Tristan Wilhoit, not in the best position right now, but he could end up being another sleeper. He's done that in the past in this race, has done very well. Long time since we've seen this name as well. Ian Dutta in 28th position. Ian Dutta is back in the series. Got quite a bit of fanfare here. He's from California, or he's a Brazilian-American from California. Ian Dutta is going to be a threat here. He did very well in his debut race here in the American 700. I believe the inaugural American 700 that was. And I think he finished 3rd or 2nd in that race. And on his inside, we have the always interesting John Cittadino, who I believe had a cage of monkeys brought to his shop this morning. Not sure what he did with those monkeys. On the outside of the next row up, we have Allie Nelson in the 24 car. Nelson looked very strong during the day. So if this race does in fact get does get going tonight, which it looks like it will, and it stops, only to be restarted tomorrow morning, Allie Nelson could be a serious threat if this race becomes a day race tomorrow. And on her inside, we have Nicholas Vernier in P25. Vernier is looking pretty nice today in the McLaren. On the outside of row 12, we have Kyle Nova. Nova qualified, I believe, 2nd last season, or he qualified toward the front last season. It's American 700. And on his inside, we have Paul Thanos, one of the second of the 3 Ferraris in the field. The leading Ferrari is a little bit further up of Alan Cavagnaro. Thanos is looking rather strong as well today. Sean Galligan, runner-up in the race last season, is going to be starting P22. Galligan just narrowly missed out on the American 700. It turned into a big slingshot fest towards the end of it, and Galligan just came up on the short side of the stick when Perkins passed him. And on his inside, you have Jessica Shelton, looking rather very, very strong. Jessica Shelton in final practice, I believe, jumped up to 3rd, so Shelton will be one of those cars to watch. Could she be the first female to ever win the American 700? I think that could be a possibility tonight. On the outside of row 10, we have Max Neuwirth. Neuwirth has attempted the American 700, I think, every year since season 17 or 16. Never's been able to make it. Now this is his first chance that he made it, and he's looking rather strong in final practice. And on his inside, you have William Duncan. William Duncan is looking strong as well in final practice. Here is a car up now that did not look strong in final practice, or actually was the fastest in final practice. I got my rows mixed up there. Charles Samper was by far the fastest car in final practice. Samper's luck in this race has never been good. I think he's been wrecked out early on twice in the American 700. In fact, I know he did in season 14, and last season he got wrecked out quite early. And on his inside, you have Charlie Fabrosis. I honestly believe that last season they actually started on the same row as well. Interesting thing there. Fibrosis and Samper once again starting on the same row. And up on the next row we have Martini, the Mexican-Italian driver in the totally not an Oricom car from a couple seasons ago. That car is I believe this team bought an old Oricom and got it into the field, and actually outqualified the 2 real Oricoms, which is kind of surprising. On his inside, we have Jeff James, a Sony Cup Series standout driver in his first ever American 700. James was looking to maybe make a run with the Coreweiser team from SCS, however, that kind of fell through, and James got the Action Terra. Jeff James was another car that looked pretty quick later in final practice as well. On the next row up, you have DJ Curtis, the season 16 American 700 winner at Texas Motor Speedway. He is going to be a force to be reckoned with in this race. And here was that car that I said didn't look good in final practice. Cody Lamas hit the wall and actually had to get the backup car out. They didn't throw him at the back, though, because this race works a little differently. You're allowed backup cars even after qualifying, but Lamas did wreck the car off the front bumper of Kyle Nova, front bumper of Kyle Nova, and Lamas had to go into the backup car because the front end of that car was totaled. So this car has not seen the track, and it's going immediately into a 700-mile race. So that car isn't as good. Lamas said it wasn't as good as the first car, but and it could be a rolling hand grenade, so we'll have to watch Cody Lamas. Andrew Cross is in 12th position in row 6, outside of row 6. Cross is a championship contender, won the Round of Amaria this season, and has looked good, or has qualified for this race in the past, although I believe he got taken out in the big one early on last season. And on his inside, you got James Shelley. James Shelley has been close many times in this American 700. Never been able to win it, but James Shelley has done quite well in this race in the past. Top 10 now. Alan Cavagnaro in the leading Ferrari is in 10th position in his final American 700 as far as we know. He's going to retire from full-time competition after Lime Rock. It's expected that Paula Thanos will take over that ride, and Cavagnaro will go into kind of a retirement. And on the inside, we have Edisham Padkar in the 56 car. Padkar qualified last season's American 700 and did well in a very underpowered car. Qualified an underpowered car and did well with it. And Edisham Padkar could be a serious threat for a possible win here as kind of an underdog winner in the American 700. The next row up, row number 4. We have row number 5, I'm sorry. No, row number 4, I take that back. Row number 4, we have an all-discover Ohio row with Kenny Myatt, the 3-time ARCSOA Elite Series champion. Never had the best of luck in the American 700. He got taken out from leading the qualifier last season. And Nathan McCain, who has been a serious force. A serious force out there this weekend. McCain is actually, a lot of people, is actually leading the polls to win the race in Las Vegas right now. So the highest bets, the odds are on Nathan McCain to win this race. So a lot of pressure on Nathan McCain, but he is definitely the guy to do it. On the outside of row number 3, we have Will Lewis, another guy with high odds to win the American 700. Will Lewis in the Cathnex one-off car, the leader out of the Cathnex cars, is looking rather strong as well, so Will Lewis could be a threat. And on his inside, you have Vincent Allen, the season 15 American 700 winner. His teammate won the 16 one. Vincent Allen in a green-white checkered, thrillingly and upsetted the field by winning on debut. Vincent Allen has done very well in the American 700 in the past. So Vincent Allen's another guy with high odds. We're starting to go up the odds order here pretty nicely here. On to the front 2 rows now. Row 2, Nick Mace, the season 17 American 700 champion, is going to be starting P4. Nick Mace is going to be a serious threat for the race today. And Nick Mace's aggressive driving style could pay off. Here's a guy who kind of shocked the world by getting up this high on the grid. That's Henry Sanford, beating out his brother. Sanford has attempted the American... Henry's attempted the American 700 before. And, hasn't had the best of results in it, needless to say. He qualified for the season 14 running, but didn't do much with it. I remember he got taken out, I think, on lap 2 in that race, and has attempted in rather slow cars every other year. Now he's with the S3 car, which is pretty heavily funded by the Sanford family, despite Charles driving for DNC. The Sanford family has a lot to do with that team. Out of the front row now, we have Sean Perkins, last season and the reigning American 700 champion, former SCS champion. Perkins, once again, has a really quick car. Horizon Group only brought one car this season, as Siren, their other driver in SCS, is driving for DNC. And on the pole, Noah Hart, one of the pioneers of the sport, is our pole sitter today. Hart was ecstatic when he found out he won the pole. He was out on track, nearly wrecked the car during at the end of qualifying because he found out he was the pole sitter. He was desperately slow during the day. That is one driver that I think wants this race to run all during tonight or tomorrow night if it rains tomorrow morning, which might. He is going to want this to be a night race because his car looked disastrously slow during the day and when it got hot. Remember, last season was one of the hottest American 700s ever run. Other than the round at Indianapolis back in season 15, this is the coolest. And in fact, I think we're even cooler than the Indianapolis one, as we're down to 72 degrees in the middle of July in Southern California. That is a shocking low here. And with the rain coming in, the wind's going to pick up and everything, so it's going to be a very different kind of American 700, and Noah Hart's car seems to grip like that kind of change in weather condition with it being cool. He does not want to see this track get hot or sun. Noah Hart might fall through the field pretty quickly then. Anyway, that is your starting grid for the American 700. A couple of big names, like I said, did make it. Cooper Syron, the pole sitter last year and championship leader, didn't make it. And Jake Baskinger, another major championship contender. This is the kind of race that James Shelley, who is starting all the way back in P11, well, not all the way back, but in P11, could definitely capitalize and regain that points lead. Remember, this is a double points race, and every point matters in this race. Every point matters. Other guys that didn't make it, James Silverfox did not make it. Neither of the Silverfoxes made it. Richard Johnson didn't make it after looking really strong during the day. He couldn't get the time right, or he couldn't time his draft out right at the end of the night, and ended up getting not making the field. Eric Silverfox is in the same boat, so this will be the first time in a long time that neither Silverfox has started on the grid. Sam Curtis in the third CBM didn't make it. A lot of cars that we were kind of surprised didn't make it. Well, didn't make it. A couple of other big names. Ryan Griffin was amazingly fast early on in practice. Didn't do anything in qualifying, though. He looked pretty strong during the day, and during the day practice sessions, Ryan Griffin looked really strong, but he didn't have the speed during the night to get the pole. And a couple other drivers that we kind of thought would make it didn't. Matt Duncan was quick as well. That kind of shows this whole qualifying system that we had was it was not a qualifying race system. It was pretty much track opens at 8 o'clock, go out there and run whenever you want. Track closes at 10 o'clock, and the fastest 42 cars go. Out of the 80-car entry list, a lot of the known people who were going to be slow were, don't believe there's a whole lot of 4 and 1. I don't think one 4 and 1 off team with the except made it. Darren Blake was from a foreign country. I want to say Jamaica. Didn't make it. And Televanian didn't make it. Jeff Stacey from the UK didn't make it. Jeff Stacey was pretty hopeless. And Neville Scott III was by far the slowest car on track. And the final kind of thing I wanted to talk about before we get down to the race, or go to commercial before we get down to the race, is, believe it or not, Roman Rahal didn't make the field, but he nearly qualified a Blue Flare car. Blue Flare was talking about possible updates coming to their cars by the American 700, and that looks promising for the future of their season, that their cars are so fast. Shame that none of them made the race. Same with Menervini. Menervini looked pretty strong too. We're going to go to commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to get the green flag.